My name is Kelly Chandler and I work for Itasca County Public Health, and we are going to be talking about e-cigarettes, Juuls, vapes, Sorens, and what's the big deal about these devices and how do they affect your health and wellness. They've been focused on in the news as of late, both nationally and in Minnesota, and we wanted to talk about what they are, who the target audience is, how they do affect your health, what they look like, and what you can do as a parent and community member when we're talking with youth about these devices. E-cigarettes, they are electronic nicotine delivery devices, which is a larger umbrella term that describe many different electronic devices. Basically, they heat a liquid that turns into a vapor and it's inhaled. These products are rapidly evolving. This slide that we're showing talks about 450 different brands being available. I actually feel like this is a low number because more and more products are coming out every single day. So the juice, the actual liquid that goes inside an e-cigarette, comes in over 15,000 different flavors. They smell good. They don't smell like your traditional tobacco or nicotine products. These products have been attractive to youth in particular. We've also had instances in the past of young persons thinking they were juice and actually becoming poisoned because they smell like juice, they look like juice, they're colored like juice, but they actually have a heavy concentration of nicotine or other chemicals inside them. So I'm going to talk about a few specific devices so you know what we're talking about. First, we have the Soren. This one is called the Soren Drop. I want to show how big it is. It's actually about the size of a credit card. We also have the Soren Air. That also is about the same size. They're very lightweight. They actually look almost like an iPod. And on this slide, we have devices that are similar to the Soren called the Rollo. They have an emblem on the front that almost signifies a badge of honor. And the vaporware, these products are disguised as hoodie strings or even backpack strings. They're actual clothing that you can wear or a string that you can put in your hoodie and just puff on it, blow the air into your inside your shirt if you're using inside your sleeve. These are marketed, you can see on this advertisement, as being hands-free for someone, for example, who wants to game and not have to take their hands off their controller to be able to vape. This particular advertisement is a backpack. We see an athletic looking girl who looks very fit. And then again, she's carrying a backpack like this is all natural, but really the backpack strings are a vape device. A few of the others that are new, there's a watch that looks very much like a Fitbit, where you actually pull the watch face out and vape on it. There's also iPhone cases that you pull up a little gadget on the end of the iPhone case and you can vape out of that as well. And here's a picture of the watch that I just mentioned, and you can see that the watch face does pop right out. So I want to stress the fact that these products are made to look and feel like everyday products that you might use. You can see in this slide, there's devices that look like pens, like writing utensils, like highlighters, like corrective tape, and they're meant to be discreet and hidden. So I want to stress the fact that these are products that are made to not be seen in everyday life. They're meant to be hidden and look like products that we might use every day. So this slide shows how marketing is done by the electronic cigarette companies. You can see in the lower right, we have Marlboros. They're in a pack that's similar to gum. They have colors similar to gum. We have some cigars that look like they're similar packages to candy. We have snus or chewing tobacco that is in a similar shape to mints, icebreakers. They have bright colors. They're made to mimic other products, again, like candy. This particular product markets to persons who might be concerned about their weight. We see that this has 0 calories, and you can have 50 servings of a vanilla cupcake and not gain any weight from it. So anybody who might be concerned about their weight, who wants to have sugary treats, but are concerned about the calories, this particular e-cigarette product would be marketed to them. And you can see how on the left we have vape fluid, which looks very similar to ice cream, which is marketed on the right. We have the same shape, the same design on the packaging, and we have the bright colors. And this, we're talking about juice boxes and vape liquid. And again, how much similar the graphics are on the packaging, the colors, made to give the impression that these are healthier options when really they contain nicotine or other products. And this is some of the marketing you might find online. We have young, attractive teenagers who are using the Juul product. And you can see the bright colors behind them, and it looks kind of like a cool activity to do. These are the tactics that the companies use to encourage use, particularly with our youth. And one other way that the tobacco companies market their products is they display them right on the counters, by candy, by other items you might pick up at the end of your shopping trip, right on the counter. They are strategically placing their products where you might make an impulse purchase, or it's at eye level so you see it. This happens if you go to convenience stores. You will see this, that there are plenty of tobacco, nicotine, e-cigarette products placed strategically right on the counter to encourage your purchase. And I want to spend some time talking about the Juul. Juul really was the game changer for e-cigarettes. They've only been around since 2017, currently own 3/4 of the market share of e-cigarettes. And I'll talk a little bit about why that is. But first and foremost, the Juul is very similarly shaped to a jump drive, something you would put right in the computer. The pod is right in the end of it. You can see it's very small, a very small amount of liquid in that pod. You actually charge the device either in a cell phone charger or right in your computer. So when these first came out, it was very difficult to see if someone was chewing on or sucking on a jump drive, or if they were actually had a jump drive for their work. So again, Juul was a game changer, not only for its sleek design, and that it could be hidden, but we're going to talk a little bit about the actual liquid that's in the Juul. I do want to point out a Juul pod. This is a cucumber melon pod. They're very, very small. Again, have a small amount of liquid. I do want to reiterate the amount of nicotine in this small pod that actually looks almost like a fuse that you might find in a household. It has the same amount of nicotine as 20 cigarettes. So that's an entire pack of cigarettes. Very, very concentrated amount of nicotine. So we're going to show a video about the Juul and how they are marketed and use fruity flavors.
I'm going to be reviewing the Juul fruit medley pods. Really excited to try it, so here we go. Oh my god, it tastes like strawberries and like it's so sweet. 5 out of 5. And I even have kind of a buzz, like I kind of feel lightheaded.
So again, why is Juul the game changer? Nicotine as a substance is extracted from the tobacco plant, and nicotine is very, very harsh on your throat. It causes a burning sensation. You've maybe seen images or videos of someone taking a hit off of a cigarette or an e-cigarette, especially the early products that had the regular nicotine liquid, and they would have a very large cough after. It sounded very harsh. Well, what Juul did is they took this nicotine out of the tobacco plant and added an acid to it and made it into what's called nicotine salts. So the substance is much less harsh on your throat. It's actually smoother, and so you're able to take this concentrated hit of nicotine and not have the harshness to your throat and not have that cough. And that's the other reason Juul was a game changer for the e-cigarette market, because prior to that, it was traditional liquid nicotine that was utilized in the products. And now we're going to show another video that talks about e-cigarettes in general, how the tobacco companies market traditionally to how Big Tobacco marketed their products prior to the e-cigarette era.
People have been smoking for at least 7,000 years, but it wasn't until the 1800s that cigarettes became the smoke of choice, after machines were developed to mass produce them. 200 years later, in 2003, the electronic cigarette was invented in China, and since then the use of e-cigarettes, also called vaping, has grown exponentially around the world. E-cigarettes are electronic devices that vaporize a flavored liquid. They all used to look like cigarettes, but now they come in many shapes and sizes. Many look like pens or small boxes called mods. What they all have in common is 1. A power source, usually a lithium battery. 2. An atomizer, which heats the e-liquid. 3. E-liquid or e-juice, which usually contains flavors and nicotine. And 4. A cartridge or tank, which is filled with e-liquid. Heating the e-liquid creates a cloud of vapor that looks like smoke, but without a lot of the lethal components contained in tobacco smoke. Many people assume e-cigarettes are safer than traditional cigarettes because they don't burn anything or create tar in your lungs. But it took almost 7,000 years for humans to realize that tobacco causes lung cancer, throat and mouth cancer, causes heart attacks and strokes, and damages the lungs. E-cigs, meanwhile, have only been around a little over a decade, so there just hasn't been enough time to figure out what effects they'll have on your body. We do know that e-cigarettes deliver nicotine just like the traditional cigarettes, causing increased heart rate and blood pressure. Nicotine also has powerful effects on the brain. It releases rewarding neurotransmitters in the brain, like dopamine, and changes brain chemistry. It is a stimulant, making people feel more alert, but when it goes away, people crave it even more. It can interfere with the body's own natural ability to make dopamine, and soon the user needs nicotine just to feel normal. The developing brain of teenagers is the most vulnerable to these effects. The powerful addictive nature of nicotine is so high that it's comparable to heroin and cocaine. Besides nicotine, e-cigarettes contain chemical solvents. When heated very high by some of the new e-cigarette devices, these solvents can be transformed into formaldehyde, which is a carcinogen. It causes cancer. These observations are concerning, but we really do not know what the long-term effects from inhaling these chemicals in your lungs will be. E-cigs contain many other chemicals to generate enticing flavors. In fact, there are almost 8,000 different flavors available today, so we don't know very much about many of them. We do know that some of the butter flavorings contain diacetyl, which is famous for causing popcorn lung. Popcorn lung is a disease called bronchiolitis obliterans, which is basically an irreversible scarring and destruction of the delicate lung tissue that can kill you. Strawberry and other healthy-sounding fruit flavors have been found to be cytotoxic and potentially cancer-causing as well. Vaping devices, or specifically the lithium batteries inside them, may explode unpredictably. Although uncommon, this happens frequently enough that e-cigarettes have been banned from luggage on airplanes. Unpredictable explosions have occurred in people's faces and mouths and resulted in serious injuries, including blindness. With these potential risks of e-cigarettes, the addictive nicotine, the exploding batteries, the carcinogenic liquids, why would any company want you to use them? Sales of e-cigarettes approach $8 billion per year and are increasing. The truth is, tobacco cigarettes kill about 50% of people who use them. So tobacco companies, known as Big Tobacco, need to keep recruiting young people to become addicted in order to stay in business. Here are some actual documented quotes from tobacco executives. "We don't smoke that shit, we just sell it. We reserve the right to smoke for the young, the poor, and the stupid. The base of our business is the high school student. The fragile self-image of the young person needs all the support it can get. Smoking may appear to enhance that self-image. Studies show that when people start to smoke in their teens, they become addicted and stay smokers as they grow older, even those who swear they will never become addicted. Many of the same strategies that Big Tobacco used to hook your grandparents into smoking tobacco cigarettes have simply been modified and are being used today with an e-cig in place of a tobacco cig. E-cigarettes come in candy and dessert flavors like Skittles, gummy bears, and vanilla cupcake, directly aimed at teens. Ads always show thin, beautiful people vaping. Even the strategic use of humor is being successfully used to get customers on their side. The bottom line is that we are all faced with important personal choices every day. We don't yet know everything we need to know to make informed decisions about many things, but we can resist being manipulated. Take your time when making your own personal decisions. It can make all the difference.
And when we're talking about e-cigarette use in youth and why we're so concerned about it, the prefrontal cortex, which is highlighted on this video, that's the part of the developing brain that is not mature until we're around the age of 25. Sometimes it can take a little longer, and that's a very normal process for youth. Unfortunately, when we're using substances, and we can be talking about nicotine, alcohol, other drugs, dopamine is released. It's that pleasure-seeking chemical, and that is transmitted to multiple areas of the brain, but including the prefrontal cortex. And that, again, the part that's still developing, that's the part that controls our attention, our focus, our ability to make decisions not based on this moment, but into the future, thinking about consequences. And we don't want those developing neurons to be predisposed to this dopamine while it's still developing and hardwiring, which is why we talk about substance use before the age of 21. You're much more likely to be using substances as an adult the earlier you start. And again, that doesn't matter which substance we're talking about, nicotine, alcohol, other drugs. We're very concerned about youth access because of this developing brain. And I do want to touch on severe lung injuries. This is very, very new within the last couple of months, nationally and also in Minnesota, and actually even locally in Itasca County. The severe lung injuries are coming about with persons who have used vaping products. Nationally, it is unclear exactly which products are causing this, but what they're finding is persons are presenting to emergency rooms with shortness of breath, coughing, nausea, diarrhea, and it's not an infectious process, meaning it's not being caused by like a bacteria or a virus or some other infectious agent. So what we're finding is they're not getting better. We're not being able to treat them with antibiotics, but we know that their lungs look like they have pneumonia. There's been news articles talking about severe chemical burns, as if somebody has been exposed to a toxic chemical in the air. And what they're finding is that the history of these persons are the exposure to e-cigarettes. In Minnesota, they have typically been linked to THC, which is a chemical in the marijuana plant. However, it's not necessarily just one particular THC product, which is a little scary. Nationally, it's been more unclear because some of the persons presenting with these emergencies have used THC products, but some have only used nicotine products. And it's again, not one product that we've linked it to. We don't know exactly which chemical is in the products that is causing this. I mean, we've had a few different chemicals and agents thrown out in the news, but it's still not clear. So this is a really scary topic to think about, that what is in these products, we're not certain what's causing these severe lung injuries. And unfortunately, nationally, there have been deaths. Actually, Minnesota is one of the states that's had some of those deaths, but there's over 1,000 different severe lung injury cases in the United States. When we talk about Minnesota, the Minnesota Department of Health is following this issue very closely. I have a link on this slides, but we will pull it up for you. They are updating this website at least weekly, if not more often, with the amount of cases of severe lung injury that are already determined and then also that are being investigated. And there's a little link that you can see cases by county, and you can see that Itasca County is included. We do have severe lung injuries from these vape products that has been determined locally. So what is black market vape? That's the term that's being utilized in the news that is most linked, and again, I say most, not all, linked to these severe lung injuries. This one is called Dank Vape, which it's been in the news, but it's really a brand. And what they're finding with black market vape is vaping products that are not rigorously tested to make sure that what they say is in the product is actually in the product and is not causing other concerns. And with some of these companies, they're not regulated by the FDA. They're not necessarily having listed on their ingredients what is in them. And then the other piece that is questionable is we don't know how the chemicals that are in these products are actually mixing when they're actually in the vape and what that's producing. And if you do a simple Google search on black market vape, you will find some articles related to that. So again, we're primarily finding THC, but also nicotine, but there's chemicals added into it that are accumulating in the lungs and causing these severe lung injuries. So any illegal, non-medical grade marijuana. I do want to throw to Minnesota, we have medicinal marijuana. If you have a card for one of the qualifying conditions, black market vape is not included in those products. Those products are rigorously tested. We know what's in them. So when I'm working with youth, I'll often ask them, do you know what this is? And they'll say Cam Newton, or they'll say that's a dab. And a dab is been marketed as a dance. But really, a dab is not a dance. That's not how it started. This is a dab. And a dab is a thick substance. It's almost wax-like that traditionally contains a very high concentration of THC. We're talking 4 to 5 times the concentration of THC that you'd find in a traditional marijuana plant. Unfortunately, we have had some emergencies locally and otherwise of persons, including youth, putting this waxy substance into their vape and inhaling it. And with this high concentration of THC, it can lead to being unconscious, struggling with your breathing. And so I really want to caution about some of these products that we're putting into vapes that have these high concentrations of drugs that we may think, oh, I've used marijuana before, but you use this and you could end up in an emergency room with that because of the high concentration. So I just wanted to throw it out there because we have seen cases of this locally, and I really want the community to be cautious about vaping in general, but also the products that are being put in without knowing exactly what's in them. And we have, because of the national attention with e-cigarettes, we have some organizations that are working to combat juuling and e-cigarette use. And the Truth Initiative is one of these organizations that has developed and is marketing a texting line for persons who want to quit vaping. And again, you don't have to be using the Juul, but because Juul is the most prevalent, they're using the term ditch Juul. And you type those words, ditch Juul, no spaces, to 88709, and you can receive messages to support being able to quit using the products. This is a slide from Minnesota student survey data, and I use this to talk about the importance of policy. In public health, we recommend policy change to set our values and how we want the community to be related to their health and wellness. The Minnesota Student Survey is conducted every 3 years. All of our local high schools, middle schools participate. You can see that the most recent data I have is 2016. The 2019 data will be coming out any day now, so I will be adding to this slide. But you can see in 2000, I believe it's 2006, 2007, how the 9th grade use of any tobacco products really was decreasing in our community, and really this was nationwide and statewide as well. Well, in 2007, that's when clean indoor air passed. That's when we could no longer use traditional tobacco products like cigarettes and cigars inside public spaces. And you can see how when we set that policy, that the identification of the risks associated with tobacco use was much more well known, and so the use went down. And then around 2013, 2014, we started seeing the use go back up. And what we know about that time, that's when e-cigarettes really became more prevalent. And so that perception of risk of tobacco and nicotine began to go down and the use began to go up. And we certainly want that to go back the other way. And that's why we're doing these types of presentations and talking to kids and the community. And we're going to show a video about a young gentleman who I was able to see at the National Tobacco Conference in Minneapolis. He's a 16-year-old who was very addicted to Juul. He was using 4 pods a day, and he ended up having some very significant health concerns and ended up in a rehabilitation to quit his habit of e-cigarette use.
Vaping was my biggest addiction. It wound me up in the hospital with a seizure, and it also wound me up in rehab. I started using nicotine in 8th grade. I started using chewing tobacco, and I did cigarettes and cigars, but vaping was my biggest addiction. It lasted for about 15 months of my high school career. And the whole reason I wanted to start vaping and juuling was to quit. And that's what I told my parents when they figured out that I was smoking cigarettes. I told them, hey, I'm going to start juuling, I'm going to start vaping, because it's healthier than cigarettes and it's a good way to get off. And they quickly realized that it was very wrong. I was a straight-A student. I went to failing. I used to play 2 sports, soccer and basketball, quit freshman year, and I quickly became very irritable, very angry all the time. At home, I was super explosive. I would damage property when I was mad, or I'd be really super aggressive. And my whole perspective on life had changed. Prior to my seizure, for I'd say probably about 4 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, I had really intense chest pains, cold sweats. I felt really weak, and then I have insomnia at night. And I thought that was really peculiar. I remember even talking to my mom and thinking like, oh my gosh, like these are signs of a heart attack. But after the seizure, when I went out, I got checked by a cardiologist and a few other doctors, and they said that the chest pains were definitely from inflammation from vaping. I feel great. I mean, I'm still human, you know, I still go through hard times, I still go through stress as human. I still make mistakes, but I'm definitely happier to be here.
So we really don't know what's happening. Everyone who is vaping and using an e-cigarette or a Juul product right now, essentially they are a lab rat for the industry. But if you smoke that product, you're 4 times more likely to go on to smoke a combustible cigarette. 4 times more likely. And we do know what happens when you smoke a combustible cigarette. That product, if used correctly, is designed to kill you. Doesn't love Doug the Pug, right? I mean, you would much rather look at that guy's face than this face. We admittedly are taking a little tongue-in-cheek approach and having some fun with a very serious. I don't think there's any youth or young adult in America today who's waiting for an adult to tell them what they should think or what they should do. It's just not going to work. And so our job here really is to use and allow people like Doug the Pug to communicate a really serious message, but in a really fun and entertaining way. Now we have what the Surgeon General is calling is a massive epidemic on our doorstep. It's virtually the Wild West in terms of the products that are on the marketplace. And what you see happening now is that the tobacco industry has seen this as an opportunity for them to capture market share. Make no mistake about this is about making money. And so when you look at who's involved and who the significant players are, you have Juul, which is the category leader. They own roughly 75% of the vaping market share. They recently were just purchased by Altria, the manufacturers of Marlboro. They now own a 35% stake in Juul.
I feel so much more comfortable in my own skin. I like myself as a person. Of course, I'm still figuring myself out. I enjoy being around people. I enjoy being in the world.
He is now speaking publicly. He has great prevention messages, and also talks about adults supporting youth. He doesn't necessarily say that within this video, but that I've been able to hear him speak, and he talks about how adults can support youth. I'm actually going to jump into that real quickly. I don't have a slide on it, but how can you as an adult talk to youth, talk to your kids about chemical use and high-risk behavior? First of all, we want you to engage in conversations with youth. We want you to connect with them. Tell them you care. Tell them you care about their health and wellness and safety. You don't necessarily need to accept what behaviors they might be engaging in, but show them you care and tell them that you disapprove of high-risk behaviors. And let them know that you're a good resource. We don't want kids getting information that isn't reputable. We want you to be the experts as adults, and let them know that you would be this person for them. And show them that you're paying attention, and you're paying attention to high-risk behaviors, and that you don't approve, and that we care about what you do, and we're interested in what you're doing. And then help youth build their skills. Help them to, if they're in a situation that they don't know how to handle and they're worried, maybe have them have a code word that they could text you, and you could call them or help them remove themselves from that high-risk situation, or help the youth practice saying no. Practice saying no if they're in a situation where they might feel pressured to engage in a behavior that they know is unsafe or don't really want to engage in. And why we care about youth, again, 95% of adult tobacco users begin using prior to the age of 21. And actually 85 to 90% begin before they're 18. So we really want to delay or not have people begin using tobacco in the first place. And tobacco is still the #1 preventable cause of disease and death. We know in Itasca County that the cost of medical-related conditions due to tobacco use is $56.7 million. Again, that's only Itasca County. That data is available on the Minnesota Department of Health website and is available for every county. Again, $56.7 million, or $723 per household in unnecessary medical costs related to tobacco. It is the #1 cause of preventable disease and death, and we want to change that. I have some resources available, not only generally about e-cigarettes, but also marketing, public service announcements, cessation, how to quit using tobacco if you would like some assistance. There's toolkits for schools available that talk about not only e-cigarettes, nicotine, tobacco, but addiction in general. And we'd encourage you to visit any of these sites for more information. And lastly, we are going to end with a 30-second video that came out with the Truth Initiative. They first aired this video during the MTV Video Music Awards, and they're using a more humorous, positive approach with animals against human testing. Because these e-cigarette, Juul, Sorin, these products are not tested, they're not regulated, and we don't know what the long-term effects are. And so here you have animals against the human testing with these products.
In a wild turn of events, animals are demanding Juul not test on humans. Mario?
No one knows the long-term effects of juuling, so any human who uses one is being used as a lab rat. Thank you.
Let's hear from Doug the Pug and his fellow protesters.
I will never stop fighting Juul. Or the mailman.
Nicotine is trapping humans in a grueling cycle of addiction. Oh, excuse me.
Thank you, Cupcake. Fact, no one knows the long-term effects of juuling. Do you?
Thank you for your time. And if you would like more information, you can call the Itasca Public Health Department at 218-327-2941. Thank you.